Test, test.
Hi.
Yeah, great. Well, Vincent, great to meet you in person now.
Yeah.
And I figured let's start with an easy one.
That means they're going to
Let's
get
just
harder.
jump right into it. Today's been an incredible session, as I was sharing. Each session has been so unique and building on each other. And I think now after lunch, we're ready to talk a little bit about some Blaze Pizza. And so if we were at one of the local spots, one of your local locations, what would you be ordering right now?
Well, I would not be ordering the pizza that we just saw.
The kamikaze?
I would not be ordering the kamikaze. No. So interesting fact, I don't eat gluten and I don't eat dairy, and I'm the chief marketing officer for a pizza company. So I'd be ordering our gluten-free crust with our house-made red sauce, no cheese, our Italian sausage, Kalamata olives. I'd probably throw some basil on today, an olive oil drizzle, and some arugula to finish it off. So,
all right. I would just second that. I'll skip the art lovers then. And I mean, it's been incredible getting to know you a little bit and just seeing your background. It was fun because I too have a non-traditional background in the space, and you're cresting now just over 2 years. Mm-hmm. And as I thought about that, I have a unique insight into the brand. As I mentioned, about 3.5 years ago, I was speaking with some of the other leadership. And along the way, I've seen the change and felt it and thought about it. 2 years before you joined, Blaze was in a very unique spot. And then this world event happens, a pandemic, and insert Vincent. Basically. So mind sharing, when you walked into Blaze or when you joined them, what was the state of Blaze at that time in your role?
Sure. I would highly recommend no one join a restaurant company in the midst of a pandemic. So yeah, when I walked in, all the lights were off in the office. It was myself and a CEO across like opposite sides of the board table, like 12 feet apart, wearing masks and going like, oh shit, is this, what are we going to do over here? But when I joined a marketing team of 3, a brand that had originally been a 90+% walk in down the line type of business with very, very little digital presence. And a brand that had been experiencing some stagnation even pre-COVID. And so joined with a big challenge on my hands. The brand was about 8 years old when I started, founded by marketers who had a really great concept, but hadn't necessarily articulated things from sort of a core value proposition, emotional and sort of a rational value proposition as well. So came into a lot of interesting challenges, particularly as a third of our restaurants are in the state of California. And every week it was like, we're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed. So it was a little bit harder to do a lot of more long-term planning, but also a lot of great opportunity, right? There was like a huge blank slate that existed out there for how we could really transform this brand and this business, how we could really go from digital as sort of an afterthought to digitally enabled, how we could think about how we could build a more emotional value proposition and brand promise for all of our guests. And then the other key thing was, again, thinking through the brand as a whole, particularly from not only the underlying platform, but then how we were representing that visually through everything from social media to what we're finalizing right now is an entirely new visual identity as well.
Yeah, and I want to click into that a little bit. I loved when we were talking about joy. Mm-hmm. And the color, and then mind sharing a little bit about that, like free to be you and how it's functional and emotional.
Yeah. So what we did was, and when I started at Blaze, the brand had never once done primary consumer research. Like, just think about that. Like, they'd never done a focus group. They had never done like a panel, anything. So that was the first thing. I was like, well, we should probably talk to our guests and figure out what they want, what they love, what they don't love. And that started an entire process to come up with a new brand platform. We started with a brand promise. Blaze's new brand promise, which we launched internally this past March, is free to be you. And so the reason why that pizza was only $15 with a drink with 47 toppings on top, not good profitability wise for me. So please don't order that pizza. But why that is because we don't nickel and dime you. You come into Blaze, you can build your own pizza, you can put anything you want on, and you're not going to be charged for all those extra toppings. So there is this freedom to create. There is this freedom to add whatever it is that you want and not have to think about being nickel and dime. So free to be you is very much a functional value proposition. But what free to be you also allows us to do is go into a much more emotional type of space. So now I can start talking about how you're free to be yourself. Come as you are. That goes into all sorts of different things with diversity, inclusivity, but it's really just around more broadly around for the unique individual that exists inside of all of us, and how I, as a brand, can speak to you, and how I can then speak to you and speak to you and speak to you and every single person in this room in a little bit of a different way. And so that really allowed us to go much more into an emotional territory. And with that brand promise of free to be you at our core, we then built out every other aspect of our brand platform. And so again, a lot of times when marketers do this, I've built like 7 or so brands, I think, in my career, or reimagined some failing brands in my career. You know, people kind of do things in little vacuums, and I wanted to be really, really careful that we kept the brand promise at front and center for this. And so it even then became, what do we think about values? And one of the values we talked about was around igniting joy, because just think about pizza for a second, right? And this came through in our research. Pizza really brings up fond memories for people, a lot of childhood memories, like after a sports game or, you know, a pizza party or things like that. That's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's not exactly thinking about that as like, oh yeah, let me have date night at a Blaze Pizza, right? Because you're like, no, that's why I'm gonna like bring my kid, or a soccer game. But there was definitely a lot of joyful moments. And so when we think about free to be you, what is the relationship that we want to have with our customer? Igniting joy was one of those brand values. And I have 3 other values and pillars and all sorts of other things that are a part of this platform. But then again, taking that one step further, and what you'll see when the new Blaze identity rolls out is, what is the color that represents joy? So think about it for a second. Hopefully you're all thinking yellow, right? Like sunshine, joy, like happy, like the little happy face emojis, like they're all yellow. So yellow is not a Blaze color right now. It will be in the new brand identity. And it's also like highlighter yellow, just because I wanted to really like stand out and look a little bit different. But so we've really, really taken a very purposeful approach to every single aspect of what we're doing with the brand. We're thinking about everything from, you know, I appreciated the panel up here earlier that was around diversity, and we were talking backstage a little bit, and I was saying how, you know, it really resonated with me when we were talking about marketing around Pride this past June, and I said to the team, as they all were like, well, we should do this and we should do this social post, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like this falls so flat for us as a brand. We're not doing enough. Like this isn't where we need to be going, because if I feel like I'm lying by putting all this stuff out there. And free to be you, yes, it so much ties to this, but we're not doing enough. And so we actually took a very different approach, and we said, okay, we spoke as an executive team, et cetera. I was like, we need to do something internal. So we actually ended up doing something that was much more internal facing with all of our team members across all of our restaurants. We did Pride packs, we did Pride parties, we did all of these opportunities to celebrate them as individuals that went way beyond LGBTQ, right? It was more about them and the fact that we were embracing them as individuals, Pride Month being a part of it, and then using that as a launch pad for how we're now putting other initiatives in place for our internal team members, again, all being driven by that brand promise. Then once I'm actually legitimately doing things and I feel good and proud about what we're doing, then I'll feel great about going external, right? And actually putting that into marketing and talking to consumers. But again, this idea of this brand promise is really meant to be the North Star for every single thing that we're doing, from hiring decisions to, like, I question our HR team on benefits packages that we're giving people, like really a lot of the different types of things. So it's been a journey that has been a hard journey, but I think we're finally at a point as a brand, and by no means are we perfect. We still have a lot of work to do, but now we're finally at this point where this brand promise is starting to kind of make headway and sort of permeate the entirety of the business.
Yeah, and not that you need any more validation yet. I really appreciated when we connected, you shared how with the free to be you can't say that and then have certain employees that you're excluding. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know about the pride until 10 minutes ago. And to hear you truly live that and you're really leading that. And then Joy, I thought of Inside Out, the character, what color is she?
Yeah.
And us being fathers of 2 little girls, I've seen that movie more than enough. And yet it's interesting because I think that thought process is a derivative of maybe your background. And I don't think you have the most traditional background or career path.
Yeah, probably not. So the first time I had marketing in my title was when I became a chief marketing officer. So my background, I actually started as a management consultant at BCG, where we sell or sold, they still sell, I don't sell anymore, overpriced $2 to $5 million projects to big companies who could pay people to come in and like make 400-page PowerPoint decks. And I was the guy who did a bunch of Excel analysis, a lot of consumer research, and 400-page PowerPoint decks. That's how I started my career. But I worked on primarily consumer-facing brands. So I worked on America's largest retail coffee brands that you might be familiar with. I worked on a very large clothing retailer based in San Francisco who's having some drama with Kanye West at the moment. So those were a lot of my clients, and but working on a lot of totally different things that were unrelated to marketing. Did a little sprint at America's largest milk company, and then spent a big portion of my career at Hilton. But when I was at Hilton, again, I wasn't in marketing. I built out their whole brand strategy group, and I first built out a strategy team, then I built out a guest experience team, an insights and research team, an analytics team, and again, worked with marketing teams, but a lot of my work was on building new brands or repositioning existing brands. So taking like Waldorf Astoria, hopefully no one at Hilton's here today, and taking it from like it's like not a real luxury brand, and saying like, how are we going to compete with Four Seasons, right? Or taking Hampton Inn and how do we bring that to China? Or personally oversaw and developed brands like what's now Motto by Hilton, Canopy by Hilton, et cetera. And in those types of things, it was everything from digital to social media, go-to-market strategy. I was selling franchises with our development team. I picked the shampoo that went into the showers for some of the hotels that you hopefully are all staying in. Personally tried all the sheets like on my bed for like a month at a time. So that's when I really, really appreciated how important the details around brand are, and how brand is not just a logo or what advertising campaign you do. It's every single touch point, and in hotels it's literally touch points, right? Like your sheets, the people, do they say hello sir or hey dude when you walk in, right? So those are all really, really big components of that, and did that for a really long time, and then was like, all right, now I want to go do something a little bit smaller. When you're at a multi-billion-dollar company, it's super fun because you get a lot of resources and budgets and things like that. But then I actually came out to Los Angeles to work for a company you guys may all know and remember called ArcLight Cinemas. And so I was at ArcLight. I was their first ever CMO, brought on to completely reimagine the ArcLight experience, fully rebrand, digital, complete new strategy and transformation, and launched a 9-month marketing campaign on March 3rd of 2020. Went on vacation, the borders closed, came back, movie theaters were closed, offices were closed, and and then ArcLight filed for Chapter 7. So I then joined Blaze Pizza. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here. But yeah, so my background, I did not come up through the sort of traditional. I wasn't at P&G or Kraft in sort of a brand management program. I never worked on the agency side. Really came from a much more sort of analytical research strategic base than more on sort of the creative or the traditional marketing side.
Yeah, and I think that that's lent you very well with what you've done at Blaze. As I said, just feeling it, and then when we connected to here, you transformed what they thought was an app now to an app, and then building out that platform, getting that first party data, and then actionizing that data into what you've done. And I think the article I saw, you helped correct me that you're going to go from 340 locations up to like 800 in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get to 800, but we are entering into a pretty big growth phase, both with our existing markets and our existing franchisees, and now actively expanding into new markets, looking at international markets, looking into new states. So yeah, like we're opening a Blaze Pizza in Alaska. Like we're But the wonderful thing about pizza's pretty universal. Like, tell me someone who doesn't, like, you're thinking about it right now. You're like, I could actually go for a pizza. You're like, if I didn't just eat lunch, I'd be like, yeah, I'd go get a pizza right now. So that's the beauty of our brand and our product, is that we are universally loved, like in all countries, by all people. And so that does give us a lot of opportunities, particularly with this new brand platform, to go into our next phase of growth.
It's incredible to hear how you've innovated so much in 2 years. And yet, if you were to extend the timeline out in 5 years, I'll say you've laid the foundation now for 3 more years of scaled innovation, and you have a lot more ahead, it seems like.
Yeah. So I mean, again, like we're a franchise, relatively small business, right? So like some of it is because you need to do certain steps first before you get to the other, and some of the other things are because like I don't have money to do things. So we're pretty scrappy, and there's definitely going to be this sort of ongoing roadmap on all things. It's on the brand itself. It's on what we're doing with digital. It's on how we think about product. That I think makes the brand a really exciting place to visit, to be on the journey with us, to work for, because it's there's definitely no 2 days that are alike at Blaze Pizza.
Right. And speaking of which, I want to end with just one point, and then I think we have time just for a few questions. Is remember the "Will you pizza me" story? You mind kind of giving a summary? The one girl that's "Will you pizza me"?
Oh yeah. So so again, and it's interesting because when we were backstage and talking about the TikTok, we had already commented and responded to the TikTok. But one of the big things that we've done, and one of the ways, again, that because I don't have like giant budgets to do a lot of stuff, we've actually really focused a lot on social media as a brand, and particularly on TikTok recently. And when you think about free to be you as our brand promise, we've really thought a lot about how we do authentic engagement with our fans and our guests. And we had this college student on Instagram DM us and like was sending puns to different, we didn't know, but sending puns to like all these different brands. And she didn't have a lot of followers, and was like, will you have a pizza my heart? And like we were like having this banter back and forth, and ultimately like asked us if we would be her Valentine's Day date. And we said, hell yeah, we'll be your Valentine's Day date. And she then like put a whole video on TikTok. It blew up, it went viral. And then I'm like, okay guys, but you are actually going to be her Valentine's Day, right? And the entire team was like, no, we can't be your Valentine's Day. I'm like, yes, you can. You're going to figure this shit out and you're going to become her Valentine's Day date. So what did we do? We invited her and all of her friends. We sent a limo. We had a pizza box filled with chocolates and a note. And we put a candlelight dinner inside a Blaze Pizza nearest her. And we did an entire Valentine's date for her and her friends, right? Like those are the things where when you authentically engage with people, like that's what free to be you means to me. It's like, we're not going to follow all the rules. We're going to just like, why not? Right. It cost us like, I don't know, $800 or something ridiculous. Right. And like they were super into it. Like, I don't care if it blows up on social media. Like, I now have a super fan who is going to tell that story to every single person she meets and be like, oh my God, I had this amazing experience. And now I'm getting like, that's how you create viral moments with brands. And that's how I think you create authentic connections with your customers. So
Yeah, thank you. Wow, hearing it again is even better. So we have 0 minutes left. So time for one question. At least I want to open it up if anybody has a question for Vincent. All right.
Well, you can find me afterwards and you can ask me whatever you want. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you. A pleasure to be with you and to see what you're doing. And we look forward to where Blaze is heading.
Great.
Thank you.